Hi there, my name is Brian Grant and you are watching another PSU Intermediate Excel video. In this video we are going to be looking at Excel's 4 data types. In fact, this is probably going to be 2 videos. But in these 2 videos we're going to be looking at Excel's data types. So when Excel does calculations, the values that go in and out of a calculation can take one of 4 flavors. So when a formula produces an answer, there's an infinite amount of possible answers out there, but all of those answers are going to be they're going to be one of 4 different sort of kinds of answers, right? And we're going to sort of look at those today. And one of them you're very familiar with. The second one you're kind of familiar with it, though you may not know it. And the other 2, they're going to be new to you, but they're not very hard. Okay, so the first one that you're probably very familiar with is numbers. So when Excel does calculations on numbers, it occurs just the way that you think it would. So numbers are things like 2 and -3 and 2.7. Anything that you could do math with is a number. And when Excel does math, the answer is going to be of a numeric data type. So if I add 2 and 2 together, I'm taking the number 2, which is like 0 plus 2. I take another number 2, 0 plus 2. I add them together, and I get a new number, which is 4, which is a sort of 0 plus 4. So numbers are things that you can do math on, things you can add or subtract or divide or multiply or take averages of or sums of or things like that. Numbers, these are easy. These are exactly what you expect them to be, so I don't want to dwell on them too much. Text strings, which is you've seen them all the time, and you just maybe not know what the official name for them is. Text strings are collections of symbols. So all this stuff like this here, and all these words and stuff like that, these are text strings. Normally we humans think of sentences and words and paragraphs. When you do that on a computer, or more specifically do that in Excel, you have to use text strings to do it. So text strings are collections of symbols. I tend to think of them as like a printing press, sort of a printing press data type. So for instance, here we've got this text string dog, and that text string consists of the symbols capital D, lowercase o, and lowercase g. And this is a very useful data type. You're going to use this a lot in your calculations, and it's not that hard, but there's a few things that if you're new you might not know. So we're going to go over those and hopefully make them clear to you. The third data type you may have seen before, but probably not. This is the true-false or Boolean data type. This is the data type associated with yes or no questions or yes or no calculations. So when you ask Excel a question such as is the number 5 odd, the answer is either going to be true or false. And in the case of is the number 5 odd, the answer is true. So when you ask Excel questions like that, it's going to deliver one of these 2 answers. And these look like text, but they're not. They're actually stored differently. They're sort of displayed like text, like the letter TRUE and FALSE, but they're not. This is a way of Excel storing the answer yes, and this is a way of Excel storing the answer no. Okay. Now the final data type, and some books and some people don't even call this a data type, but we're going to treat it like one because it does come out of calculations. These are errors. So when you try and do a calculation and something doesn't work, and it is unable to spit out a real answer, it will give you an error that tries to describe what went wrong. So for example, here I've got this guy. In this formula, I've taken the number 10 and I've divided it by 0. And if you know your mathematics, you know that you can't divide any number by 0. And so instead of producing a numeric answer, because there is no numeric answer, it gives me this error, which is the divide by 0 error. It's letting me know, maybe not specifically where in this formula, like let's say I had a bunch of other stuff here, like, I don't know, plus 15 times 20, and I hit enter. Divide by 0 doesn't tell you exactly where in the formula you've got a problem, but it tells you the kind of problem you have. So it says somewhere in your formula, somewhere in this whole formula, you've tried to divide by 0. So I refer to this as Excel's check engine light. It doesn't tell you exactly what's wrong with your formula, but it gives you a general idea to help you go find it. Okay, let's move on and look at, in this video we're going to look at the first 2 sort of in depth. So over to numbers. Numbers, as I've said, I think probably twice already in this video, these are sort of exactly what you think they are. These are things that you can add together. They have a direction and a distance from 0, or they're a value more or less than 0. So if I take, so instance, like I take the number 2, which is 2 greater than 0, and this is the other number 2 greater than 0, and I add them together, I get 4. I get 4. Notice that if you take these two distances from, let's say this is 0, and you put them together, you get this new distance, which is the sum of the other two distances. So you can add them together. It includes things like, I don't know, 2.5. 0 is a number. It also includes negative numbers, like negative 6. So if I add, let's see, if I add 4 and negative 6 together, I get negative 2. So if this is 0, that distance is negative 2. So numbers are just, things that you add together. They're pretty simple. As we've talked about in another video, the number that you see on your screen has been formatted to make it easier to read by a human being. But that should not be mistaken for having sort of different kinds. They're not different kinds of data types. So like here, $15, that's formatted as a currency, but really it's just the number 15 underneath it. And this -8 with the 2 decimal points, well, these 2 decimal points are here so human beings can look at them, but as far as Excel is concerned, this is just the number -8. And this percentage, well, that's just 0.2. And this accounting format is just, here it's -20 cents, and here it's just -0.2. So even though you might think these things are different data types, they're not. They're the same data type, just formatted differently. Also, and we'll probably do a whole video on this, in Excel, dates and times are stored as numbers as well. And we'll talk about that and go into, do sort of a deep dive on that. But just as a simple illustration, let's say, maybe show you the motivation of why Excel does this. Let's say that I'm going to rent out something today, and I know that when I rent things out, they're due 7 days from the day of rental. So this is probably not today. I'm going to do Control : to enter today's date. Enter. So let's say that I've rented things out today on the 12th, and I want to know when it needs to be returned by. Well, if I take this date here, and I add the number 7 to it, and I hit enter, what I get is 7 days from today. 7 days from today. And that works with time as well, so we'll talk all about that. But just so you know that if you see time and dates in Excel, those are actually stored as numbers, and you could do math on them. Okay, so let's talk about how to use numbers and formulas. Well, this is pretty easy. Just like understanding numbers is pretty easy, using them in formulas is also easy. You just type them in. So if I do equals 7 plus 7, and I hit enter, I get 14. Well, that was pretty easy. If I do sum of 1, 2, and 3, and I hit enter, you get the sum of those numbers. That's pretty easy. You're going to want to leave the dollar signs off. So what you're not going to want to do is equals like 1 plus 13, because again, the dollar sign is when you look at them in cells, that's formatting to make it better understandable by to make it more understandable by humans. But Excel doesn't really care about that. All it wants to do is look at the underlying numbers. In this version of Excel, if you add commas for thousands, like if I do 1300, I believe it will actually fix it for you. Let me see if it does it. Yeah, it'll automatically fix it for you, but I think, yeah, it'll remove the thousand separator for you. So you could type them in there, but you really shouldn't, because it's just going to remove it anyways. So you don't have to add any of that stuff. Okay, so it's equals 300. Okay, so numbers are easy. Numbers work just the way you expect them to. Let's look at text strings, which are a bit more complicated. So you've been looking at text strings your entire life, if you've been using a computer your entire life. Text strings are ways is a way that a computer can display paragraphs and words and sentences. But computers don't think in English. Computers think in computer. So when they show you things in English, they have to have a way of doing it. And the way they do it is they have these text strings, which are arrangements of characters and symbols. What do I mean by characters and symbols? Well, characters / symbols are things like letters, number symbols, spaces, and punctuation. I often think of these things as blocks in an old wooden printing press, or tiles in a certain family game that you could probably think of. So, for instance, here I've got the text string dog. The text string dog, it consists of 3 symbols, and the symbols are uppercase D, lowercase o, and lowercase g. Notice that I say upper and lowercase because that actually makes a difference. So an uppercase D and a lowercase d are different symbols. So let's look at this text string. This text string is Go Vikings. Go Vikings, and I've sort of I guess I'm not sure if this is a sentence, but I've put two words together in this text string, and what I want you to notice specifically is let's go through the text string. It starts with an uppercase G, a lowercase o, and then it's got a space. And then it's got a space. So that a space is an actual character in a text string. And you have to remember that if you're creating a text string, you need to remember to add those spaces between words, which sounds really easy. And when you're just typing stuff in, it will be real easy. But when you create formulas, you're going to end up sort of squishing these two words together without putting a space between them. And you'll think back to this video and be like, oh yeah, I have to put a space between words manually. Okay, so we're going to keep going through. So we've got an uppercase G, a lowercase o, a space, an uppercase V, a lowercase I, a lowercase k, a lowercase I, a lowercase n, a lowercase g, and a lowercase s, and an exclamation mark. Notice that the exclamation mark is also a symbol. This is a symbol in a text string. Okay, and finally we have this guy here, which looks like it's blank, but if I double click on it, you can see my blinker there. If I arrow left and right, you see that this text string actually is not empty. This text string actually has 4 symbols in it. 4 symbols in it that are all spaces. So I've got this text string has 4 characters in it. Character 1 is space, 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 and space. So I just want you to know that looks can be deceiving, and so something can look empty, but it can actually have a text string in it. And in terms of, you might be asking yourself, well, okay, I could see why you need text strings, but what kind of calculations would you do on text strings? Well, like an easy one, I'm going to do the len function. What the len does is here it says len, and then it's got text because it wants a text input. So if I feed it a text input, what it's going to produce is the number of characters or the length of that text string. So if here I hit enter for len for that, the answer is 3. So the length of this text string is 3 because there's 1, 2, 3 symbols in it. Now if I come over here, let's do len Go Vikings. Go Vikings. I'm going to hit Control Enter, and now I've got 11. And so let's go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, what's important about that is this space is counted as a character in that text string. If you're starting out, you might think to yourself, well, there's only 10. There's only 9 letters in this, and if you count the exclamation mark, there's only 10. Where'd that 11 come from? Well, that's from the space. That's from the space right there. And also, you probably see where I'm going here. If I do the len of this text string right here, and I get 4. And even though it looks like it's empty, this text string actually has 1, 2, 3, 4 characters in it. Okay, so text and formulas. This is not as easy as numbers, but also not very hard. Anything between the quotation marks is considered a text string. So if I go in here and I do, let's say I do ABC, that's actually not going to work. That's not going to work. If I hit enter, I'll get an error because it's trying to find like a function or a range, and it doesn't know what ABC is. So it gives me this name error. It says I don't know what this name refers to. But if I wrap it in quotation marks and enter, then I get ABC, right? So anything between these quotation marks is considered a text string. So this is a text string with an uppercase A, an uppercase B, and an uppercase C. While I'm in a text string, I can write things like A1 or 7, and Excel is not going to see them as ranges or numbers. It's just going to see them as symbols, right? So I've got this whole text string here, and this A1 doesn't refer to this. It just is the uppercase A, the symbol's uppercase A, and number symbol 1. And this isn't the number 7. This is the number symbol 7. And I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to skip over this part. Because it's pretty important. In Excel's eyes, the formulas. Well, I have to. Oh yeah, it's just cut off. I'm going to resize this so you can see the whole formula. Equals string 14 and equals 14 are very different. In fact, I shouldn't even call this string 14. I should call this text string number symbol 1 and number symbol 4. and this here is the number 14. So this is two symbols, symbol 1 and symbol 4, and this is the actual number, the direction and distance from 0, 14. So I can do math on this this piece of data right here. I cannot do math on this. So there are certain functions that will be able to handle this, that will look at a text string and say, oh, I bet you don't mean symbol 1 and symbol 4. You probably mean the number 14. But not all functions can. So if you need to do math on something, you need to make sure that you're storing it as a numeric data type and not a text string. So here, just to reiterate, I've got this is equals text string 1, 4. So this refers to the symbol 1 and the symbol 4. This, by contrast, refers to well, I think I had made an adjustment because I wanted to have a two-digit number, so it would really drive the idea home. But I forgot to adjust this text string here. So okay, so equals 14. It doesn't refer to symbol 1 and symbol 4. It refers to the actual distance 0 plus 14. Okay. Now we've already looked at one function that uses text strings. We're going to look at this formula here, and we're going to look at an operator that you can put between text strings. So in math, you've got operators like plus, minus, multiplication, division. So if I do 1 plus 1 plus 2, I get 3. With text strings, you can't add text strings together. You can't add A, B, C, and D, E, F. That doesn't really make sense. But what you can do is join them or concatenate them, as they say in the computer world. Well, what does concatenate mean? Well, concatenate means to sort of take two text strings and sort of stick them together. So this ampersand is kind of, I think of it maybe as the glue stick operator. So what it does is it takes a text string on either side of it. It applies some glue there to the end of this text string. It applies some glue to the end of that text string, and it creates a new text string that is these two text strings combined. So I'm gonna highlight this area, and when I hit F9, it's going to evaluate the area that I have highlighted. I hit F9, and I get A, B, C, D, E, F. So it's glued those two text strings together. And if I highlight this whole area and I hit, I'm going to hit F9, and it's going to take this text string and glue it onto the end of that text string. There we go. It's glued it onto the end. Notice here, this is a space. I've introduced a space into this text string. Spaces are symbols. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to hit F9. Do it again. Okay, you sort of see where I'm going here. I just really want to drive the idea home. So every time I hit F9, this operator is taking the text string to the left of it, the text string to the right of it, and sort of gluing them together. F9 and F9. There we go. F9 and F9. Okay, that was probably the most exciting part of your day, I'm sure. All right, I'm going to hit escape. So you've seen how you can sort of work with text strings a little bit. We'll work with them a whole lot more later on. But now you've got a taste. Okay, so when you're we've talked about entering text strings into formulas for constants, which are things like that aren't formulas. Like if I do equals 1. This is a formula that says 1. The answer is 1. But if I just type in 1 and hit enter, what I get is the constant number 1, right? So if I want to type in a text string, I can do it with a formula. I could do A, B, C, and hit enter. I'm gonna move this guy up, and that's just fine. That's a perfectly good formula. Oop, I lost my formatting there. What I can also do is I can just type in A, B, C and hit enter, and this is a text constant. Now, if I want to enter a number, but I don't want it to be a number, I actually want it to be a text string, I can, there's a couple ways I can do it. I can do equals 1 and hit enter. And now, even though this looks like a number, it's actually a text string. It's text string symbol, number symbol 1. The other way I can do it, if I hit an apostrophe at the beginning of my my formula. So if I do equals, it says, "Hey Excel, this is a calculation. Perform a bunch of calculations after. Do everything after the equal sign." If I do apostrophe, it says, "Hey Excel, this is going to be a text string. So whatever I type in, if I type in 150, and hit enter, it's going to give me an error because it's like, hey, I'm pretty sure you want this to be a number, but we don't. We want this to be a text string 1, number symbol 1, number symbol 5, and number symbol 0. It's going to be a text string. So if I do equals is text, yeah, and I hit enter, I get true because Excel thinks this is text. Okay. So that's convenient. When you're entering in constants, the basic rule of thumb is to Excel it looks like it's either a number, a date, true or false. It'll make it either a number or a true false value. Anything else, it will be a text string. So if I type in 150, Excel looks at that and says, "Oh, I bet he means a number." And if I hit enter, I get a number. That's the number 150. I'm going to hit F2. If I do 150 ABC, because if it was just this part, it would figure out that it's a number. But once I add text onto it, it doesn't know what this is anymore. So it's just going to call it a text string. So now I go is text, I hit enter, and it's true. As opposed to, let me double click on this. Now it's false. So if it looks like a number, it'll turn it into a number. As soon as you add text to it, or it can't figure out what it is, it'll call it a text string. Okay, so I think we're at a good breaking point. We've sort of gone over the two most important data types that you'll be using all the time. In the next video, we will look at the other two data types and how they can be of use to you. See you then.